Imagine sitting at home talking to a person that you try to break through to them, and they continuously get more delusional and idiotic in the video at the same time, to the point where there is literally nothing you can do to try to get people to understand their consequences to their actions. And they literally have no idea what's coming to them. Welcome to an episode of Why I Hate OnlyFans. And this episode should definitely give you a reason to stay away from 304s and just get your passports and go where you're wanted and appreciated without feeling disrespected like America. We have a woman who is an OnlyFans model slash porn star who is claiming that it's okay to sleep with their fathers.
What the fuck?
I'm not making this up. This lady literally just said that it's okay to sleep with family members. Ma'am, do you understand that if you sleep with your family member, whether it's your mother or your father, that means incest. That means that you will be charged with incest, and you and your father will have to spend 18 months separated from one another. Because not only that you've broken your family's trust, but you crossed the line. But according to these 304s and porn stars, you see how OnlyFans has turned these people's mindset into something that is way worse. This is why porn stars and OnlyFans models are not respected by society. The ones that do are simps and losers. So let's hop on to this video, and you're going to get the reason why I cannot stand it.
Is it morally wrong at this stage for you to have intercourse with your father?
Without any chance of procreation?
Correct.
So morally, no.
Okay. Let's do the first piece, morality. Do you have a morality?
Yes.
In terms of what is a moral wrong, and since you're essentially a sex worker, within the realm of sex work, what would you say is morally wrong?
If there is harm to so anything with someone underage, I think that's wrong. If something with someone can't consent, or there is no consent, those are pretty much where I draw the line. So before anyone asks me, I don't actually think there's anything wrong with incest, anything like that, as long as there's no procreation involved, because then you're harm to a future human being. But yeah, that's kind of generally what I think. Yeah, I knew that question was coming because it always comes after this, and I do hold.
I only have one question about this. Was she touched as a child? Was she molested growing up? For her to actually think like this, that incest is okay, and can nobody judge her for it? Because there is something in this girl's mind that is saying, why on earth are you thinking like this? What makes you think that sleeping with a family member of your kind is okay? There is something in her mind, in her brain, that is telling her, no, what you're saying is absolutely ridiculous. But it seems like these people just don't care. And it shows completely. Man, if you're watching this, I need you to understand something. When you have women like this that you're dealing with in America that is claiming that incest is okay, my advice for you is to go to church, read your Bibles, and start to think life differently. Because these people have no shame, they have no accountability of what they're doing, and they expect people to respect them and treat them as such just because. And that is not okay.
Did you say there's nothing wrong with incest?
I don't think there's anything morally wrong with incest. Tell me what's wrong with incest. Tell me.
Which is real. I just want to make sure that's what you. I just want to make sure that's what you actually said. That's wild.
I think it's a moral intuition that we have, a moral moral disgust that we have. And a lot of times that's not the best way to gauge morality, is by going by our intuitions. Although a lot of morality is surrounded by is the foundation of it is our intuition. But if your morality can't be justified by rational thought, or it can't withstand rational thought, then it's not a good one to rely on. And maybe you should change your thinking. And that's
I know you have a sister. Do you have just one sister? You're one of two?
Yes, one of two.
You're one of two. Have you had any sexual experiences with your sister?
No. But
have you ever touched your sister?
Morally wrong? No, I'm just not interested.
If you're not interested in it, why would you come out your mouth and say that there is nothing wrong with the incest? So clearly you are interested in incest with your family member. Don't lie.
Sister's vagina?
No, but I don't think it'd be gross. I would think it's gross. It cites disgust, but
Look at him
being
like,
gross and
she is clearly lying
are not
here.
The same thing. I also think poop fetishes are gross. I don't think they're immoral.
You far gone, baby. Lord, you far
Very
gone.
far gone.
All right, I have a
Very
question for you.
far gone.
What's wrong with that?
You far gone, but go ahead. Go ahead, love.
Go back and forth on this. So tell me what's morally wrong if I touch my sister's vagina. What's morally wrong?
I don't even think it matters for me to tell you that, and I'll tell you, and that's precisely why I said I don't.
I can tell you a few things that is going to happen if you decided to touch your family member inappropriately. One, very awkward around one another. Two, it's going to be very hard having that close relationship with your cousin, with your sister, with your brother, because of what you guys did that nobody knows about. And third, the fact that you over here sitting here lying and smiling tells me everything I need to know about you. You're on these podcasts and interviews, calling yourself a lawyer, an OnlyFans lawyer that'll defend 304's behavior. Why is that? It's to think that any man is going to want to put a ring on your finger. You're only doing it for to have a good time. Men will never take you seriously if you're doing stuff like that. They'll have sex with you to have a good time with you. But ain't no way in the world you're going to sit there and tell me that I should put a ring on a 304 that does online prostitution for a living. Like, I would rather take my own life than to date someone who somehow completely thinks it's okay to disrespect themselves, to sexually degrade themselves, and become 10 times more delusional than ever. You cannot make this up.
I'll tell you why, because it's such a vile thing that we're so far apart that even if I were to explain to you, either you wouldn't comprehend or you wouldn't accept. And it's almost probably
at the beginning of this that you're not going to change my mind, or you're not going to change. We already know that. So I'm just saying, if we're here and we're going to have a discussion and we're going to have a debate, and you're just using the circular, oh, it's wrong because it's so wrong that it's just so wrong that it's wrong.
Yes, it is.
So it's not wrong?
I said, did I say it was wrong?
You're insinuating that it is, because you're saying you can't even explain to me because it's so.
No, I didn't say I can't explain.
Debate it, then yeah, that's my view, and let's move on.
I didn't
Okay,
say
now
that I
she's
can't
just
explain.
throwing darts
I can
and
explain. I'll give you a little
getting
taste,
his
but I
words
didn't say I
mixed up.
can. I absolutely can. But to me, it's more interesting for people to hear your views, because my audience knows my views, and you're my celebrity guest after all, right? Like you are my celebrity guest today, and I want people to be able to hear you out. I'm not such a narcissist that I want to talk over you and like spread Marquettism. I want them to hear what you think and see your perspective, because my perspective is clear, well-known, and documented. Now, with regards to incest, I think that there are a number of things that in the human nature, that we instinctively have an aversion to. Like, for example, it seems as though you instinctively had an aversion to touching your sister's vagina. And with that instinctive aversion that we have to certain things, it is to protect us as individuals or to protect us as a species. For example, you wouldn't eat, generally speaking, because of the stench. There's a stench on that makes you not want to eat. Whereas there's an aroma to a hot apple pie that might make you want to consume it, such that your natural instincts helps you differentiate between feces and food. They both start with F, but radically different.
True.
Similarly, with regards to incest, which I didn't know they had hillbillies in Iran. Good Lord. There's a natural feeling at being wrong, in as much as if you were to have an incestuous relationship with your father or with your sister or brother, if you're at opposite genders, then the child would be likely to have genetic defects as a result. And that is why we have laws against this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And here's the
it needs
point
to be
that I'm
more
making
across
to
the
you, is that
globe.
there's the natural aversion to it, like, oh, this is disgusting. And there's actually signs.
And the ones that think like that are liberals in the Democrat Party. Now listen, the left is known for its weird behavior and defending pedophiles, rapists, and creeps in America. And I like how he broke all of that down when it comes to comparing Pope and apple pie, when it comes to feces and everything. When you see something that you don't like because of one thing, that makes you not want to eat it. And if you see something that looks good but it tastes nasty, that makes you not want to drink it. And the same can be said about, like he said, about incest, where everybody in the family has a sick mind around people to think that thinking about doing some inappropriate things to a certain person in the family is going to make them feel good about themselves. But in actuality, they all know what they did is actually wrong. It's in the Bible. They're going against Jesus. I know these things. Because once the child end up being brought into this world, he's going to end up picking up the same bad habits as this other family member, and that family member is doing to other family members. And for some odd reason, if you live in Alabama, understand that incest is a thing down there.
Thing to do.
Yes.
Hence, the morality and the instinct in the human is aligned with what we're seeing in the culture. So there is a meaningful origin for being against incest. Do you comprehend that?
I comprehend what you're saying, but the
No,
problem
you're not.
is going
You're
just based
clearly
on your
not
intuitions,
listening.
and you're
I'm
not.
listening.
I see a spider. Evolution isn't like our brains. We have our primitive brain, and then we have conscious reasoning, right? So my primitive brain sees a spider, and I'm like, and I want to like run. But my rational brain says, okay, I understand evolutionarily.
No, you're clearly not understanding, and you weren't even listening to what he's saying. Your other brain is telling you he's saying all the right things, but I don't really care what he says. I'm going to continue to do the things that I do, and can nobody stop me from living my life? Fine, live your life, but understand that if you continue to think like this when it comes to incest, you are the problem. And I'm not even surprised that she's not even in jail of even thinking doing stuff like that to any family member. Because number one, you're crossing the line, first of all. And second of all, if people are trying to explain certain facts about this stuff, you're continuing to be more delusional as ever. It is so sad to me that these type of 304s will never understand the harm and the dangers they are putting people through. If they have a sick mind like that, especially if you're doing OF. This is crazy.
Because it made sense back in the day that my ancestors would see us like you're safer that way. This is also why we can become superstitious, why conspiracy theories are attractive to human beings, whereas critical thinking is something that takes learning. Scientific method is not what's the default in the human brain. So I agree with you. When there's an imbalance of power and when there is a potential for future harm, that's why I said without procreation, that is why that is a real harm. But when you say, okay, they're not going to procreate, and there's no imbalance of power, it's two sisters, same age, and you go, now why is it wrong? And all you can really lean in on is intuition and disgust. As in someone who's educated, you should know better than to think those are what we should.
But that's not what we've done here. That's not what we've done, right?
What do you mean that's not what we've done?
You said when one leans into intuition at the expense of reason, but that's not what we've done. We've just laid out the logical reasons and the scientific reasons.
Okay, I have a question. If we take out the
one second, love. We've just laid out the biological and scientific reasons that incest is not good. Now, we could say if you don't procreate, then it is not as bad, or in your case, you could say it's not bad. understandable. When it's heterosexual in nature, it's particularly...
Just look at can we just point out that the delusion in her face says it all. She's not listening. She's not hearing the right things. She's not hearing the truth. Anytime when they throw that techno babble at you and you counterclaim them and you pull that Uno reverse card on them, they easily get triggered and upset because they know they're 100% wrong. That's what's wrong with society right now.
Know that the human being is a terribly irresponsible animal. And in as much as that's the case, we have condoms. We tell people to use condoms. Most people are not using condoms in the United States of America.
Wrap it up.
So when you have things like this, there's a meaningful function and utility to this aversion. You understand? We agree at least on that one.
But the whole, I mean, I don't know how much philosophy and stuff you do, but there's a reason.
I just want to figure out, like, do we have any common ground on the piece that I said? Like, I know we disagree.
Yes, the policy makes sense. We're talking about an imbalance of power, like a father with like a daughter. I think there's an imbalance of power. Or we're talking about the ability to procreate. But your example of have you touch your sister's vagina doesn't fall into either of those categories.
Yes, it does.
So then what you're relying on is...
That was not an example. That was a question. That was not an example.
Okay.
Right.
Here's what I'm saying. I don't think it's morally wrong just because I have a disgust or an aversion. We are irrational creatures. We are animals. That going based off solely how I...
What does being an animal have everything to do with this conversation? You're pretty much admitting yourself that you do love incest. You sick as hell for thinking like this, man.
And how that responds is not the way that we should be determining what's wrong or what's right or any of the sort. Now, do I believe that there can be negative consequence? Do I know where the evolutionary drive to be disgusted comes from? Yes, we're in agreement on that. We can continue this or we can move on.
Right.
But yeah.
Right. But I just want to make one final statement just to make your position very bright for everyone. You would agree that there is nothing in your morality. There's nothing wrong with you bending your sister over doggy style and eating her vagina. There's nothing wrong with that in your morality.
Not morally, no.
Okay, so
What the fuck?
God damn it! You can't make this shit up!
Did y'all hear what she said? She's a psycho. If this video gets demonetized, I don't care. We're talking about this. There's a reason why I'm making this video, because I want all of you men out there to be aware of women like this. I think porn and OnlyFans have made these people into psychos. And she doesn't seem anything wrong with bending her sister over and eating the mess out of her. I sometimes wonder, have she ever got checked out for any STIs and stuff? Because that is the one thing that I'm trying to figure out is, how do these sex workers not get checked for any disease they got? Because there's a possibility of you putting that person at risk of catching it. And you'll end up in jail too. Because you're spreading your yayas to any person you sleep with. And if it smells like fish sticks and boiled eggs, then it's clear to me that you're the problem. There's this one clip that I saw on YouTube yesterday that really disgusted me. This drag queen was on the podcast and he was claiming that even though he was dating a person at the time, he didn't want to tell that partner that they have a disease. So they must have thought that, oh, since I'm a drag queen, I'm gay, I can sleep with anybody because I have an STD. I ain't going to tell them nothing. So you basically put that person at risk of catching something. And yet you're not going to take any accountability for it. Do you realize how disgusting and sick that sounds? And how much of a creep that you are? I just don't get it. This is what the world has come to. This is what we have to deal with forever. I just pray to God that when I have my own house for the first time, if I'm dating somebody, I hope and pray that they are nothing like this individual.
And I'm cool with that. It's fine.
No, I said that it's morally not wrong to do so.
Yes, it is.
It's morally not wrong. Okay,
Yeah.
so if it's more, just real quick, Jasmine.
That doesn't mean
you're getting shaky here. You just said you're getting shaky here, and this I like this place that we're at. You said it's morally not wrong, and then you also expressed that we shouldn't be primitive. We should use logic and reason. Well, is your sister ugly?
She doesn't even believe in morality at all.
I'm not attracted to women, and I'm still grossed out by it. There's plenty, but I'm grossed out by you too. Like there's like a lot of things that I wouldn't do that aren't morally wrong. I wouldn't have sex with you. I'm not attracted to you. I don't want to have sex. That's what I'm saying.
So,
but that doesn't mean it would be morally wrong for us to have sex.
Okay. You've never had any sexual experiences with females?
I've had a couple threesomes, that's it.
So it's clear to me that you have had threesomes with women. So you did have sex with females. But I can't get my head, I can't get that last part out of my head when you say that there's literally nothing wrong with doing it to your own sister.
She said that's it. Like it was nothing. I like that. That's dope. Like say, you know how people break up and they go on a break. Sometimes you come back with the girl. You be like, hey, you didn't f- anybody. I had a couple threesomes. That's it. I like how you said that.
Have you had? I guess those are sexual experiences with girls, but I'm not particular.
Yeah, let me be more acute then. Have you had a sexual experience where you were sexually engaging with the girl such that it would be homosexual in nature, like you were engaging sexually with her directly?
Nope, not so far.
Okay, so would you then consider yourself heterosexual?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Rob writes, ask her, does she believe in morality? So we got that one. Second piece is, does she believe in a right or wrong way to do this? Believe there's a right or wrong way to do this. We kind of hit that. I believe everyone has a right to live how they want. I don't believe that.
No.
But shouldn't there be a standard of right and wrong? I'm going to go ahead and say, Jasmine, you don't think there should be a standard of right and wrong?
No, I think it would be nice if there was, but there isn't a good one right now because unless we want to go to some sky god, what else are we going to do? Who sets the standard?
Got it. And another thing that I thought was quite interesting, were we caught up? We are caught up. Okay, fantastic. I got a ton of questions for you. And as I said, you're my celebrity guest. I actually want to learn from your mentality. So, and I don't want to bring your sister into this because I know she might not be a public figure. She might be working at CVS right now. She working at CVS?
She's a lawyer too, but she's a regular lawyer. She's a lawyer.
She's an actual lawyer.
Yes.
Okay. And is this your older sis or your younger sister?
Younger.
No kidding.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Does she do any?
Lawyer. We're all lawyers.
Very good. Does she do any sex work?
The difference between her and her sister is that her younger sister is way better than you. She doesn't disrespect herself. She doesn't sleep with a bunch of people. And she doesn't think the way you think.
Fantastic. And I always find the difference
I guess my father didn't fail there because she.
No, he did fail.
Not with her.
No, he did fail with her because her morality is in question. In your soft white underbelly interview,
never mind. I take everything back.
To your sister, and she says, "Well, Dad's going to be disappointed. Go to law school, but also just do both." And that is morally corrupt. So yes, he for sure failed with her.
I've seen a lot of so-called Christians say that God told them to do OnlyFans and have sex with a bunch of guys in the adult industry. The last time I checked, I don't remember Jesus Christ ever telling you to do that. Because if you do those things, that will displease your family members and that can completely cut them out of your life if you do those type of things. Because here's the thing, I'm a Christian, I'm religious, but the one thing I would never do in my life is be a hypocrite. If I'm honest, if I say something that I mean, I meant it. I'm not going to just sit here and put up a front and say, okay, I did wrong. I'm going to take fully accountability. Then I'm going to just continue to do that. No, if I know I did wrong, I'm going to take accountability, take full responsibilities for my actions because as an adult, that's what you're supposed to do. You can't just go around doing God knows what without dealing with a type of consequences. Because if you can't be honest with God, you're not honest with yourself. You're only harming yourself physically and mentally if you continue this path. So, for starters, her father failed both of them. That's a fact.
Beneath me, you see. So yes, she's morally corrupt. There's just no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we can't all be friends.
Well, this is the thing. The reason I don't want to get into this is because you say morally corrupt, and then we're going to have to go into what constitutes moral corruption, and then it's going down that rabbit hole. And
no, you make it seem like it has to be a complex.
It is. If you don't think morality and moral philosophy is complex and you don't understand moral philosophy, or you turn to an authority, which is your spiritual book, and that's how you determine it, which is fine. But I don't think that's. I think there's.
You're sophomoric, and often I find that people who don't understand things, sometimes they try to make it complex. One thing I learned in business is that, like, even when you listen to a sales pitch, like your sales pitch for is phenomenal. It's A1. I find it a bit comical that you suggest people want to ethically jack off. Like, like I can't just be jacking off to that regular. I need organic GMO. If I'm going to wax my knob, I need to make sure that there was there consent? Is she 18? And is there a power dynamic before I think a lot cares about that when they're about to jack off. I mean, it's a ludicrous concept.
That is clearly the superior way to do it, but okay. Go for it. But if you want to tell me in one paragraph.
She said this is the superior way to jack off.
Well, tell me in one paragraph what determines what's moral and what's not moral. What's the standard? Tell me if it's so simple.
I'll give you a sentence here that generally helps. So when there's a harm to the self, we can see that things are not good. I'll give you a simple example of that. Like, for example, if you look at male homosexuality over time, I used to manage a program at Johns Hopkins Medical. You look at male homosexuality over time, worked with a lot of physicians, nurses, postdocs. A lot of these individuals end up incontinent in old age, meaning that they can't hold their bowels because they've received trauma to the sphincter, and they've received trauma to the anus because the anus is not supposed to receive traffic in that direction. So they're actually hurting themselves. So it's a clear indication that it's morally wrong, and the result is actual damage to the physical systems. There are a number of things like that give you a very clear basis of right and wrong.
So
I literally have no idea that all of that occurred based on what he's saying. It's sad to me that a lot of men can't even hold honesty as the way he was explaining it. But just by the factual things he just said just now, she's still in denial and more delusional.
With your first sentence, because that was the only real thing in there, harm to self. So is eating a donut morally wrong?
Yeah. Free Game writes, this is extremely false. Siblings share the same DNA. Parents and child don't have the same DNA. Incest with your siblings will result to children with Down syndrome due to them having the same DNA.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. Shout out to Free Game for spreading some actual truths, because I've seen this all the time. I read some articles about it. I've seen documentaries about it on YouTube, and I think the world needs to understand what happens when you and your cousin have a baby. Ends up with a deformed body, Down syndrome, and when you think about it, do you think that we're seeing a bunch of Down syndrome people in the world due to incest in the family? Because that's kind of a conspiracy theory that I had in my mind after reading the chat. Because I like what he said, that incest with their siblings will result to children with Down syndrome due to them having the same DNA. Especially if your brother and sister. Sometimes I feel like the more I enjoy people spreading nothing but facts, the more educated I am and the more interested I am about this. Because I think this is a topic that needs to be talked about within adult community, because OnlyFans and porn is far from worse based on this clip alone. And the fact that she's still not clearly understanding the consequences that'll come her way when it comes to, not having an issue with incest. And I've always said this in my videos to every man that is watching this. If you have a woman that thinks like this, the first thing that you should do is in the relationship, focus on yourself, get healthy, get fit, get your bag, and just have a peace of mind when it comes to dating women like her. Because dishonest people hurt dishonest people. Same can be said about hurt people. And that's the problem.
Right now, and it's 50% for children and also 50% for siblings.
Yeah, Free Game writes, siblings have 50 to 75% of the same DNA, and that's 50% of a chance of having a Down syndrome child. Incest is morally wrong, and science backs it.
Procreation
True.
with a sibling is morally wrong, but you were saying that it's not with a parent, which doesn't make sense because it's the same. So that's what I was confused by.
Do you think that having sex with a parent is morally wrong?
Yes, because generally there'd be like, I would have, because the parent raised you, so there's some grooming and just weird going on in that.
But you weren't saying that before. You clearly just said that there's nothing wrong with incest. So you are clearly going to hell here.
There was no, this is just curious real quick. There's no grooming. You move out of the house of your parents, and then, 10 years later, you're like, hey, Pop, what that daddy D do? Is that morally wrong for you to have intercourse with your father?
So I think a better example are those who get like adopted, and then years down the line when they're like 25 and they
No. Let's not go with adoption. Like
No.
your
What
case.
I'm saying is that
Okay,
you
she's
find
clearly
your
switching
original
up
parent,
the conversation.
your biological parent, but they never raised you, because then you know that there was no abuse or grooming or anything. Then I don't think it's morally wrong as long as you're not procreating. But in that situation, I'd still be worried about that. Now, if you're
That's still your family regardless. Biologically or not.
completely normally, then sure. But morally wrong, no, I don't know.
May I clarify a
You're right, you don't know.
hypothetical that's a little more close to home, pun intended. So, in your case, did your father groom you?
To what?
Do you believe that your father groomed you to be inclined to have intercourse with him?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Fantastic.
You see that now, but we all know that 10 and 20 years from now, you're going to probably tell a story of how your father did this and that to you when you were a child that led you to do OnlyFans and pornography. And you claiming that having sex with a family member is okay. So whatever you're hiding, you better spit it out.
Age for you to have intercourse with your father.
Without any chance of procreation?
Correct. Because you're on
Moral,
birth control, right?
yeah, but so morally, no, I don't think there's anything. I can't, even if there is, I can't explain it. I don't have enough rational reason to actually be able to say it's morally wrong. Therefore, my default in those scenarios is to say it's not, because I don't see what the harm, like I can't find a victim here. I can't find a reason beyond the fact that I would be so grossed out by that to say that it's morally wrong. And I don't think me just being grossed out by something is enough to consider it wrong. I'm grossed out by you. I don't say that's moral. You're morally wrong for that.
Gotcha. So it's not morally wrong for you to have sex with your father.
I can't.
A yes or no will suffice. A yes or no will suffice. No, it's not morally wrong.
I can't find a reason to say it's morally wrong. Therefore, I say it's not.
She can't answer the question. Anytime you try to answer people questions like this, they can't even answer it. So therefore, they still think it's okay to do that. They just admitted themselves. She just flat out admitted it.
He writes, removing procreation doesn't make it morally okay. She's basically saying whether or not there's a negative consequence determines morality. Most of us agree lying is wrong, but you can tell a lie and avoid consequences. Thoughts?
What's the
She just read the super chat You can't make this up. You can't make this up. She's still up there lying to herself, and she's lying about the whole thing. She's lying about incest. When the super chats are the ones that are spreading actual facts. You're trying to educate these people, and yet somehow they are still delusional. You can't help the ones they don't want to help. You can't explain certain things to them without being more delusional.
Consequentialist, but I think with something like this, like, if you want to say lying is wrong, then you have to explain why. If you want to say incest is wrong, you have to explain why. And if you're not a
bullshit, both lying and incest is wrong. Deep down, you know it. He just got finished telling you earlier on about the dangers and the harm of incest, of what's that going to do to a family member that'll leave them trauma, scar for life, because they just tried it with you for the first time, and the both of you know that it's wrong in the first place. And so you're sitting up here trying to justify it like it's okay to you. It's cool with you that incest is cool. It leads me, it leads me to believe that even if she's got groomed or not as a child, the evidence is there. Any OnlyFans or porn stars will tell you what happened to them when they were children, which led them to do that, of what they do now. Going against God, not believing God, saying that God ain't this, he ain't that, there is no God. That's the devil, you know what I'm saying? That's Satan talking. That's the devil within you talking. And you know you doing that, it's a sin of all sins.
Out pointing to the consequences. I'm more of a consequentialist than I think you
Look at
are,
him.
which is
Face
why I was
palm, I don't
pointing
blame
to the
him.
consequences of incest that may make it morally wrong, like there's an imbalance of power, abuse, the likelihood of procreate. Like, those are the things I was pointing to. But if you're just saying it's wrong for another reason, then I think you need to explain. I believe in being able to explain your position with evidence, with reason, with logic, and just saying things are wrong because they're wrong or because we feel it or because it makes us feel icky. I don't think. Now, I'm not saying you did that, but this comment doesn't seem to be. I know there's a word limit on these, but I don't know how.
There's not a word limit. It's just it's in correlation to how much you spend. So if someone has something they feel strongly about, they'll spend more to share the whole message. And generally speaking, especially before the era of, you might be able to find a correlation between the establishment of wealth and intelligence and capability. Moreover, one of the things that I think is very evil about folks like you with your mindset is that you destroy the foundations of society in as much as you question things that need not be questioned. And me, as a person who would consider myself an intellectual, and certainly I have the academic pedigree for such, when you question everything, there's an aphorism that points out that a fool can ask more questions than a wise man can answer. A fool can ask more questions than a wise man can answer. And when you suggest that, there's an aphorism that points out that a fool can ask more questions than a wise man can answer.
A fool can ask more questions than a wise man answers. I'm going to start saving that quote in my dictionary from now on, because I like what he said and he spoke nothing but facts. Society has been ruined by 304s, strip clubs, OnlyFans, and pornography. Kids are now discovering things that they shouldn't see, and it's gonna lead their curiosity into something that is more addictive. It's like me being addicted to video games, violent video games like Mortal Kombat, Grand Theft Auto, and such. And that's gonna lead me to go and kill people and rob and carjack people in the streets, making my life a real life Grand Theft Auto. And so, and like you said, society is ruined by OnlyFans. Simps are definitely to blame for this. And yes, I'm calling you men out here as well. Y'all simps are the reason why a lot of these 304s are doing what they're doing. If you didn't have a backbone to put your foot down and let her know, look, I don't want you going out dressing like that while we're in a relationship. whether we're in the casino, bar, restaurant, at a family reunion, or whatever, do not wear inappropriate things. And if you can't do that, then something is seriously wrong with you. So it's clear to me that you are definitely at fault. You and these OnlyFans models are a problem.
Can ask more questions than a wise man can answer. And when you suggest that everything has to be debated over or polemicized, you stated that lying is lying wrong.
I didn't say that. I said that
we're getting silly here.
Be able to explain it, and I believe that. I still believe you have to explain it, but I'm not someone who walks around like, why is the sky blue? I'm not one of those people. I wouldn't say I'm a full-blown skeptic in the way, but to be able to question things like, maybe the nuclear family, or maybe this.
Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the chat. So Scooper says, this is a perfect example of how you tell us women will encourage pure evil without being aware of it. I mean, it is kind of true though, because like this broad in the video, she is clearly evil.
Appeal to tradition, maybe that's a fallacy for a reason. Maybe that doesn't mean just because it's been done this way for so long that it should change. Maybe there's a reason that in the West and in more advanced cultures, our gender roles are becoming less stringent. Maybe that's okay. Those are things that I think are okay to question. I don't walk around like, oh, why?
And those are greater ideas.
Like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, no, those are greater ideas that you just spoke of. But the concept of is lying wrong, we have to.
Okay, well, then we can get into, is lying always wrong? Because then it's, what's the, not a utilitarian, what's the
I'm glad you went to law school. Amazing. Scuba Steve.
This is how you know that she hasn't been any kind of schools at all, because she doesn't even understand what she's saying. I mean, telling a one little tiny lie is fine, but if you're doing something that you know is truly wrong and evil like that, yeah. If you can't be honest, listen, if you can't be honest with people, you are clearly not honest with Jesus. And he sees all. Jesus sees it all.
You tell us women will encourage pure evil.
Oh, pure
even
evil.
Being aware of it. You ain't never lied, Scuba Steve.
True.
Sure.
My goodness,
True.
I'm very pleased to see that you are not in power, and I will do everything in my capacity to make sure that matriarchy never reigns, because this is the kind of silliness that we're confronted with, and your thinking is representative of those who have contributed very little to the world and will die having contributed nearly nothing.
Okay, so regardless of what we've just seen in that crazy video of that individual, OnlyFans and porn and incest are all wrong. Don't ever do it. Don't cross the line. Love your family the way God wants you to love them. But don't do it to a point where Satan is commending you to cross the line with that family member. Don't ever do that. If you're having those type of thoughts, go to therapy, go to church, get right with God. That woman in the video is nothing but pure evil. She just admitted that incest is okay according to her. And not only that, she belongs to the streets. She for the streets, and the culture can keep her there for all I care.